Embrace life with a change for the better. Challenge your comfort zone with Glenn Miller, your personal comfort zone coach, enabling you, in whatever way you may need to step outside your comfort zone. The Outside Your Comfort Zone podcast explores proactive and practical tips based on years of lessons learned and expert skills and advice that will enable you to accomplish more. Each episode puts a spotlight on topics and experts in their field who will compel you to action and to get more things done outside your comfort zone.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Outside Your Comfort Zone with myself, Glenn Miller, your host. And today I'm going to be interviewing Richard Fine from Biopak, an amazing, incredible success story and company in Australia. Yeah, Rich, welcome to the show and let's kick it off.
Let's do it. A couple of notes for this podcast, just thinking about it as well. And I guess it's great to sort of think about who am I, what has made me who I am. And I think, how much of it is nature and nurture. I think I'm extremely fortunate and blessed to have been born into a family that has given me the opportunity, I guess, to see life in a very unique way, I guess, as everybody does. But I remember having these really powerful forces growing up. So I was fortunate enough to have two fathers. One, I would say, who was more risk averse or more cautious, not risk averse, but definitely on the side of caution. And the other one, who was my uncle, who was very much an adventurer and threw caution to the wind most of the time. So I had this really interesting dynamic male personalities. And my grandfather was an incredibly larger than life individual. I remember sitting at the Sunday tables and we'd be talking about business, and there's some really interesting characters in my family, and they were all larger than life, very successful business people that really lived life almost like a movie star. And this was my world. This was my reality growing up. And I was extremely blessed to have that. So I was sort of always under the impression that anything was possible. You could achieve anything really. And I think when you're younger, you're a whole lot less likely to find risk a problem. When you're younger, you take significantly more risk. I think as you age and get older and you know more, you tend to sort of take your foot off the pedal and want to sort of stay in that comfort zone. But life is a constant fight, pushing against that comfort zone. The only thing that allows you to grow is discomfort. And I think I can sort of really identify some key moments in my life that really shaped me who I am today. And I think I'll sort of highlight those key moments of discomfort, or that I really felt uncomfortable. And I think that you're going through those, embrace that discomfort. You can't be afraid of it. Even acknowledge the fear, because fear is part of it. So being afraid is part of the whole journey. And so embrace the fear and do it anyway, because that exhilaration, that thrill of doing something new, whether you succeed or not, is still incredibly addictive. And again, it's really important to understand that there is no such thing as failure. Many people refrain from taking risks because of fear of failing, and it's just a learning experience. I've been given this tremendous opportunity by those who came before me to show me these sort of life realities or truths. Yes.
So when I think of like global greats today, okay, like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, like I'm just an average man, right? But when I think of those names, and then I think of like what brought you to current date, so that's awesome insight into your background and your past, right? But let's just frame it for a sec, present day, Biopak, right? And kind of your vision that brought you to where you are. Because what's interesting is that that's the backdrop of where it all came from, right? And your mindset. But I think just for our listeners who don't know what brought you to the show, and if we can just unpack and understand, that's a bit of who the man is.
Well, I guess in some respect, a really visible affirmation of my success, should we say. And then that sort of Biopak, immigrated to Australia. And I think sort of this is part of that journey, sort of, that we're getting to. I think let's discuss the journey to where we are today. I mean, I'm happy to sort of give that overview now, but then maybe we'll edit it out afterwards. Let's discuss it. I'm many things today, and I'm still trying to figure that out, where I actually fit in. And I'm still pushing that comfort zone, trying to sort of grow and figure it all out. To a degree, I've sort of maybe tried to seek comfort, but I'm realizing pretty quickly that that is really boring and not what I want to achieve with my life. So I guess I'm trying to contribute towards this new revolution, this new industrial revolution, this new circular economy, the new way of doing business. We're on the cusp of this significant change on the way that we consume resources, the way that capitalism functions. And I'm contributing, my little bit is contributing to plastics. My whole life, focus has been in solving the plastic problem. Everything before me has led me to this point to help stop plastic polluting the oceans. That is my overarching goal. If I could do that, if I could pull all the plastic out of the ocean and stop more getting in and save the marine life and stop more plastic production, then I would be the happiest man. And then I'd look for something else to do.
Okay.
That's what I'm about now. I'm about focusing specifically on food service packaging and the food service industry, and trying to, reduce the amount of waste and the environmental impact that it has without impacting the convenience and the modern way of living. I think that we can continue to live comfortable lives in the sense that technology allows us to be safe in some sense of the word, and coexist with nature in a more harmonious way. That's what I'm doing. I'm just sort of seeing, the previous generation did certain things that at the time I think they thought were really brilliant, and that's the benefit of hindsight. But they have been extremely damaging to the planet and are causing this shift, not only in mindset but in the whole planet. The physical world is changing and shifting as a result of this. And I'm trying to lessen the pain and the chaos that's going to come with that change.
So Rich, can we explore that a little? Like, I think people listening, like, they don't know you, right? Richard, relax time, uptime, downtime, work time. But I think when I just think of that, right, some words you've used, circular economy, it's so big. So it's like such a massive challenge. So, and it's weird. Like, I think, so how did you confront this? So, just giving us your backstory like you did before, and those influences in your life that got your head kind of strong as to, make mistakes, be bold, everything's achievable. Like, just summarizing what I took out of the key points. But how did you get on this journey with these, you kind of bump shoulders with giants. That's why I'm mentioning some of the global greats. Like, when I think of you, it feels to me, and I think to our average listener, a common man in the street who's consuming Kentucky Fried Chicken and, plastic lid on the container and chucking it in the bin. I don't know, people are slowly thinking about improving that, but you're at the coalface, and that's quite massive. So, like, I think, did that ever worry you? Did you ever think, or did you just say, I want to change the world? Let's just get started, one step at a time?
That practical side that I got from my father and the businessmen in my family was really balanced from my mother with this really spiritual side and seeing the world differently. So that has shaped me to all of that, and all those experiences that came before that we'll probably get into. All of those things have shaped me to be who I am today, and have allowed me to take the risks and the challenges, and have instilled the passion in me to do that. So it's more of a passion than anything. I think it's so important to me to be doing something that you love. I always, when I was younger, imagine I would be sort of a vet or working outdoors, and then suddenly I found myself in the family business, working in a factory, producing plastic packaging, knee deep in grease on machines. And I thought to myself, is this what I want to be doing with my life? Is this doing something better for the greater good of the world? Is this making me feel fulfilled? And I was, again, fortunate enough to not have the financial stress at that stage, because I was working in a successful family business. And all of those things have helped me, take the risks and the challenges. So you asked why I chose to do that. So I came to Australia in 2003, immigrated here from South Africa, was really acutely aware of all the little pieces of plastic that I saw on the beaches, the beautiful beaches here in Sydney. Having grown up in Germiston, almost an industrial area in Johannesburg, landlocked, 5.5 hours away from the ocean. And when I went to the ocean, that was my happy space. And here I am in Sydney, and these beautiful beaches, and all I can see are little pieces of plastic. And plastic is in my blood. I've been in the plastic industry since I was a kid. My dad was there before me. And so I'm looking at all these pieces of plastic and thinking to myself, I've contributed to this. I've somehow in the business previously have contributed to this. I have the skills and the knowledge to potentially make a difference and change this. First of all, I seem to be the only one who's really aware of it at the moment. So maybe I should start, sounding the alarm bells and showing other people what I'm seeing, and so that's where it all started. I think to myself, hold on a second. And I was young. I was 33 years old, no responsibilities, no wife, no kids, no family, in Australia as a young bachelor, thinking to myself, hell yeah, I can change this. Of course I can change it. What risk is there? If it fails, I'll go get a job. I can be a massage therapist. I can go work in doing hard labor. Whatever it is, I can do anything. That's the belief I have in myself. So why not solve this problem? Of course, I can fix it. Nothing is insurmountable. Bring it on. And I think this, as I said, all of this bravado, this can-do attitude is everything that's happened to me in my life, having been pushed in or started working in business at the tender age of 18, 19 years old, feeling way over my head in challenges, thinking, I soon realized, hold on a second, you just got to pretend like you know what you're doing and you'll get through, because everyone seems to be pretending to know what they're doing. No one really knows. We're all just hacking it. Just give it a go. And if you don't succeed, you'll learn something and you'll give it a go next time. That's the mentality that you have to have. Don't be afraid of failing. And so jumped onto that and thought, yes, I can fix this up. And not only can I fix this up, because I had just read this book, Cradle to Cradle, and it blew my mind. It was all about how everything that we make is currently this linear system, and everything that we extract and utilize and consume has an environmental impact. And we really need to start looking at these systems in circular terms, where we cannot continue to extract, consume, and dispose of it. We need to recover the nutrients, recover the resources, and reutilize them. And I thought that's definitely makes sense. And I looked at Patagonia and Ben & Jerry's and the way these people were doing business, and how we did business before in the family business was always gnawed at me. I always felt that the workers should have almost like a socialist, I always felt that the workers should have more reward for the work that they put in. I always felt bad of these minimum wage workers doing these repetitive jobs. And it was a problem. I always wanted to believe that if you gave the workers in the business ownership of the business, that would be the fairest, most viable model to do. And so when looking at this next business model, I wanted to do everything different than had gone before. And this new generation of business and mentality was coming to the fore. Circular economy, B corporations, people who did business for a force for good. And I didn't need the money for myself. I was again fortunate enough to have money available. And I thought I didn't have any overheads or responsibilities. I could always get by. So let's do something for the greater good and make everyone successful and beneficiaries of this. It's the only way to do it. It felt right to me. It's the way of doing it. And I thought, these companies have done it, inspired me. Let me do the same thing in this specific industry. Let me shift the entire packaging industry and show them what it can be. And that was where Biopak was born. But I mean, it didn't sort of, it sounds like, it sort of came up with the idea and that was it. It was obviously a lot of challenges along the way. And there were times when it was like, is this going to work? Have I bitten off more than I can chew? And then it really hit home, when suddenly, I started the company in 2006. By 2007, suddenly I had a child in the picture, and that changed everything. Suddenly there was a whole lot more risk, a whole lot more at stake, and a whole lot more challenging. Sometimes, and then again, that statement, it's darkest before the dawn. I think if you can just persevere, if you can hang on, if you can stick it out, usually, things will come out, will turn out. And if they don't, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be. Failure is never that bad.
But I think your energy, your positive attitude, I suppose a big motivation for me starting this podcast was a lot of those same not the positivity. I'm lucky. I'm born a positive person, and I've just recently learned that experience, right? But the whole purpose of this podcast is to help build a community, because I think what's so interesting for anyone listening, the outputs, like the outcomes of what you're saying, in just, getting up in the morning and not worrying, but giving it a go, it's natural for you. And I think in a big part it's natural for me. It's just not something you think about. But even this concept of mental illness and those motivations that power a human to get up in the morning and power through, I just wanted to highlight that, because it's so, on the one hand, like, it's so important. And I think if you didn't have that, like, how much harder would the success path that you've been on have been, if at all, So I think just highlighting kind of message number one I'm taking from what you're saying is, I acknowledge that for some people it's very, very, very difficult, waking up and actually shifting into a positive mindset to start the day. I can't even imagine what that's like. It's just not, it's something I'm conscious of, but it's just, I'm lucky that it's not in what I do. But I think, again, from some others that we've interviewed on the show, and some of the outcomes, I think this is really the first time that, looking backwards on an awesomely successful success story, but then hearing your motivations and how you're framing how you got there, it's something that's really infectious and is really cool. And it's just the passions and following your passions that sometimes maybe, for anyone that has had a difficulty in just positive thinking, it's maybe, lean towards those passions. So I digress, but I just thought it's nice to kind of lift those points out and, pay tribute.
But it's not always positivity, it's, I mean, I think I can recall plenty of moments where I was super down in the dumps, it's like, I think, you need to take responsibility, and you need to take that choice about sort of doing the things that need to get done, whether you're positive about it or not. You have to persevere, and you have to believe in your ability to get through. That, I think, is fundamental. Positivity comes and goes depending on circumstances around you, and you've got to push through until you become positive again. Sometimes when it's really dark, it's hard to be positive, but you can always believe in yourself and your ability. Yeah, there's different ways of doing it. I mean, it can be forced on you. Someone can help you get there, or you can choose it yourself. Those are the three different paths to sort of, I think, taking responsibility for your life. For me, having it forced on me was the army. When I joined the army at the tender age of 17, leaving school, that was completely forced on me, and that was completely outside my comfort zone. And what did it teach me? It taught me to believe in myself, and to believe in being able to persevere and get through anything. There was some gloomy moments in the army, and I didn't even have it that hard. But coming from the comfort zone that I was in, the army was a complete nightmare for me. It was being told what to do, when to do, the physical, the mental. It was all a constant challenge. I emerged out the other side 2 years later, so much better. And then there's those people that help you get there. People like yourself, Glenn, who push me. My uncle, my father. Those people that sort of, are there to support you when you're going out. It's fantastic to have someone to give you a hand, to encourage you when you're standing on the precipice and saying, you can do it. Even if you believe it yourself, it's great to have someone there with you to sort of share in the risk and in the reward.
Sometimes find myself stuck with content. So flipping it the other way, I think just you and I, and just sharing, YouTube links and the stuff that I've learned just from the little sound bites you've shared. So I think even just personal connections and aligning yourself with people that lift you up. One can make a choice and actually, put a line in the sand today and say, if not, even just one message they could take out of today's show. There's so many so far. I know I have been, but just saying, look, I'm going to look back at who I hang out with and make some hard choices, like who's going to lift me up and who pushes me down. And maybe it's time to confront those people.
Be aware of that.
Yeah.
Seek out those people that lift you up, and I know plenty of people who get stuck in these toxic relationships and look for people to support that negative self-belief in themselves, It's so important to be surrounded by positivity and like-minded people and have that support. But if you don't, it's also okay. Just, take ownership, take responsibility to get things done. And I think everyone has a unique, everyone has something to give to the world. Everyone has this unique gift and a unique set of experiences that have shaped them, that can give them a completely unique perspective. And therefore, the only way that we're ever going to shift anything and grow, not only as individuals, but as humanity as a whole, is if we all push against those fears and the what ifs and just go for it. It's never as scary as it looks. It's once you're in it, as I say, that exactly, that rush, You know, and there's nothing better than having that sort of experience of surviving. I think for me, a really interesting moment in my life was when in 2017, my mom passed away. And it allowed me, in a way, it gave me some sort of a freedom, because suddenly I did not have a fear of death anymore. It was kind of bizarre. I kind of almost looked forward to it in a sense. And it sort of gave me even more impetus to take even bigger risks. Because that's the biggest fear that you can have is death. That's when everything goes wrong. And if you think about it and you put it all in context, no, it's not that bad if you can do everything that you do. We're all going to die sometime. Got nothing to be afraid of, just the only thing to be afraid of is not having given it every bit of your best before it's your time is up.
Absolutely.
Give it a go.
We've spoken about that because I had the same experience, with my mum passing away this year, actually in February, and that was the impetus and the motivation to starting the podcast. So episode 1, for those that missed it, please go listen. But it's weird, like when everything's taken away from you, whether that's passing of a loved one or some other life metaphor, it just makes, I don't want to swear, but it kind of makes shit real. It just, in that moment, everything slows down, stops, and it forces you to recap. So in terms of your the Biopak journey and just kind of your personal success, Rich, where did that fit in the timeline? Like drawing a parallel to how that might have shaped and influenced decisions you made, from that 2017 onward.
2017 onward, yes, very much so. So it gave me perspective. It made me realize that life is finite. You know these things, but you don't know these things until someone close to you suddenly is gone. And then you realize, hold on a second, my mom was only 69 years old. I'm 50 now. So at the time I was 48. Maybe I've got 20 more years, if I'm lucky, to live as long as my mom. Maybe I'm lucky. Maybe I'll live longer. My dad's 77. So my grandparents did till I'm 80. Maybe I've got another 30 years left. I've been alive longer. I've got less time left than I've been alive. There's 30 years left of my life to do shit. Biopak was full on from when I started to 2006 until 2017. It was growing this business, and it was flat out every day, all day for 15 years, however long I've been doing it. It's all consuming. And my father didn't have a work-life balance. He was a complete workaholic. I thought to myself, I don't want to do that to my kids. I want to be able to spend quality time. I want to spend time with people that I love. Maybe it's time to sort of step back from Biopak a little bit and have a change of pace of life and do things differently and see the world differently. And so that was when I said, okay, maybe it's time now to exit Biopak. And that's when we started actually looking to sell the business, which was eventually I still have some equity in the business, but it's a lot less. I mean, I spend a couple of days there a week. I'm trying to get out of it, but I can't because it's a passion of mine. I'm currently working now in the much bigger picture. I think it's allowed me to get out of the day-to-day operational stuff of the business and look at the bigger picture and engage with the industry and government, help collaborate, help this collaborative effort, because it requires collaboration to change the system. And so this is not something that Biopak can do on its own. And stepping back from Biopak has allowed me the space and the vision to, I guess, get these people together to help fulfill what is ultimately my vision, but not really my vision, because my vision is really sort of the circular economy, redesigning how we do things. And what might be right today, there's no guarantee that will be right tomorrow. So I'm constantly looking and shifting my understanding and awareness of circularity and environmental impact and good business. And I want to sort of be the voice of truth in what can sometimes be a very crowded and confusing area for those who do not know the details and the intricacies of plastics and bioplastics.
So sorry to interrupt you. So it's a good time to just fold in and frame that. If one was to, we spoke about this earlier just before we started recording, but if one was to Google, Richard Fine Biopak, I was just saying this article comes up about, the government side of what you've just mentioned. And I think it's an awesome read for anyone looking. I'm just to kind of understand how, before I reference rubbing shoulders with giants, but it's kind of bringing together everything that's led to this part of the conversation, because like you said, I don't think, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So think of eliminating plastic from the globe. Like this is not something, if you and I go and pick up pieces How much can we achieve? So this is really, you know, when you think of the shows on Netflix and the stories of the world and all the different, I mean, you'll be able to ramble them off, you know, the guys in the ocean on boats, and they've started charities just to clean up the ocean. It's such a huge movement. And maybe one could say there was a wave and a space in time, I don't know, 2017 to 2020, 2010, when, you know, these businesses started emerging, these not-for-profits started emerging. But I believe that, you know, the earth is connected, and we are all one, so to speak, in a weird philosophical way. But I think, you know, you look at industrial, you and I we've had this conversation, and I think it was you who told me that there are these 80-year cycles, you know, where maybe it's not the ether or the gods, but it's actually man and what we've created and these cycles we go through. And but the reality is, you guys are shape-shifting, like you are really leading to change. And so I'm glad you didn't leave, because like you said, it's like, it's not just one thing in your skill set that's allowed you to, you know, build the company that Biopak is, but it's, you know, I think it's maybe the heartbeat and the soul. It sounds like it ties quite closely into all these things you've described. So that article is an interesting read, because it's, you know, for anyone, I know it's always hard to kind of go into the boring parts of a business and where it came from, but that kind of just, you know, you talk of the circular economy. So even that, Rich, I mean, maybe you can just expand for an absolute layman, kind of getting what circular means, you know, take out, put back in, but maybe you can just explain, you know, simple 2-sentence explanation. What does circular economy even mean?
Okay, I'll give you an example specifically related to Biopak and my industry that I'm focused on. So I'll explain to you first what a linear system looks like. A linear system is where you extract petroleum from the ground that's fossil resources. You pull out this oil and gas, and you create a material using that resource. That resource doesn't get replenished, so it's finite. You extract it out of the ground, you create a plastic out of it. You use the plastic then for half an hour, and you throw that plastic in a hole in the ground, or you throw it into the ocean. That's a linear system. The value of that plastic, that fossil resource, is now lost and is damaging the environment. A circular system is the antithesis of that. It's a tree growing. You harvest the tree, you plant another tree. When you harvest that tree, you use that tree to make material, to make products. When that product is finished, that material then degrades back into the soil, returns nutrients back into the soil to grow another tree. That's the circular economy. That's nature. Nature does everything in the circular system. It's only humans that have this linear mentality of, you know, we can just do it one way. And so really what we're trying to do in the circular economy is that we have the circulating material streams. One is biological nutrients, which nature produces, and the other one is synthetic resources that humanity creates, steel and plastics and metals and this kind of stuff. And so what happens is we often mix these two streams together when we produce things, and it's really difficult to pull them apart afterwards and to recover and recycle them. And so we stick them in a hole in the ground. And as the world emerges and grows, and the population continues to grow upwards of 7 billion to a projected 11 billion, you know, sometime in the near future, there's not enough resources locally to continue this linear way of extracting resources, using them once and throwing them away. So it's just about being a bit more responsible about how we utilize this, because there's not enough resources to go around. If everyone wants to live like us, and that's what everyone is aspiring to in the world, you know, we're going to need a couple more planets worth of resources to satisfy everyone's demands. And that's just not happening. So there's two things that have to happen. We have to use our resources, wiser, and we have to actually change the way that we consume. Things need to become more durable. We can't have this throwaway society, constantly just, you know, making new things, consuming, throwing away.
Wow, so powerful. And it's such a simple explanation. Like I just didn't realize. And, you know, I think as consumers, there's always that conundrum, like, oh, one more straw, is it really going to make a difference? You know, you know, you're about to grab something off the shelf, and one's made from pulp and one's made from plastic. It's at the end of the world. You know, it's the government's problem. It's the council's problem.
Yep. And if I think about it, you know, I think that when you talk about this linear, it's mainly referring to plastics, because most other materials, glass, metals, organics, are all readily recyclable and recoverable. It's when you mix any of those, or you utilize the synthetic material plastic, that is so cheap and is so durable, that's where the problem comes in, is those materials. I mean, plastic is a wonder material. And this is where it all stems back from me. I was just raised being super aware of plastics. My dad was one of the first, in the 1970s to start manufacturing things out of plastics on a mass scale. So it's a fantastic material. It has incredible uses in medical fields, in automotive applications, in lightweighting, in space, in exploration. But when we use it for single-use disposables or, stuff that's used for a short shelf life or a short period of time and then discarded, and there's no way of recovering and recycling that's where we run into these major problems. And there's just 380 million tons of plastic produced every single year.
It's scary.
And it's growing exponentially. More plastic has been produced in the last decade than all the previous history since plastic was invented. So in 10 years, we produce more plastic than all the historical plastic production in the world, and it continues to go up. We need to turn the tap off because there's more plastic in the ocean, and there's predicted to be more plastic in the ocean than fish by 2025 if we continue on this track of just needlessly producing it. And there's a lot of misinformation and a lot of smoke and mirrors that are trying to divert everyone's attention away from the problem and what's actually happening. So my responsibility is to shine a light on the truth and to show and expose at my peril, because I've had death threats of what's actually happening. It's
wow.
like I'm not afraid to sort of challenge the system.
No, and I think, from a man who knows very little about it myself, I think, you're like a massively strong advocate for all of it. But it's scary that if we don't act and we don't change on it, we're all seeing it in the press. But I mean, from someone who sees it at the coalface, and those statistics are scary. It's like people out there, don't wait for your counsels and challenge the system. And I'd even say, sorry, Rich, I'd even say that as a layman consumer, right? We have a right not to consider cost. And what I mean by that is there's so many people doing it tough. Like, yes, Sydney, we're lucky we're emerging out of lockdown and the pandemic, double vaccines. It's a whole nother story. But, money's tight. I get it. But I think perspective is the word there. Like if people, we've accepted, you go into any of the retail stores and there's 4 options on the shelf. And I think what I'm saying is, no one's considering that one of those might be cheap because the components are plastic, right? And I think people need to take not their hand off their heart, but common sense. Like the whole barometer needs to change. Because
that 100%. And what's reassuring is that it's all changing. It's like, as doomily or as I paint this picture, as depressing as it may sound, since founding Biopak, the awareness on a global scale about the environmental impact of plastics, global warming, circular economy has completely changed. I mean, governments are implementing bans globally. Consumer awareness is an all-time high. So it's amazing. Don't ever underestimate how quickly things can change. So yes, it's a problem, but there's enough momentum behind it. I was watching something the other day that was saying that, change is inevitable, specifically around the way the world functions right now. Those that sort of had the status quo are desperately clinging on to it, but they're just prolonging the inevitable. It is going to change and it's going to shift. And with that comes a whole lot of potential opportunity, because this whole system that we currently believe is reality and how things work, capitalism, is about to crumble because it's not working.
Follow your passions, follow your dreams. And it sounds like there's a whole economy out there waiting to, for these change makers to get on board and get stuff done. And we've spoken about my passions in farming. I'm a digital farmer, but even that, with tech and where it's going, there's so much opportunity out there.
And everyone has the ability, fake it till you make it. We all have this unique gift, this unique perspective on the world. No one any more capable than anyone else. Just believe in yourself.
But Rich, I think if we left people, and maybe in closing, with a message from you, bundling all this amazing history, knowledge, experience, failures, losses, success, hopefully much more to come. I don't know, leave us with a message, or, what's next for Richard Fine, the man?
There's going to be chaos and change without a doubt. I think that the message that I'd really like to give is less about me, and I'd really like everyone listening to know that it's up to them to embrace to be willing to do what's different, to embrace complexity, and don't follow the crowd, and change the world with your own unique perspective, because everyone has something to give, and everyone is capable of doing that. So the more of us that attempt to do that, the better it is, and you'll find your tribe. I remember being interviewed in 2006 when I just started the company, and I said, they said, are you considered a tree hugger? And I said, no, I don't. My friends kind of think maybe I'm a bit sort of, of a tree hugger, a bit of a hippie. I said, but there's more and more of us coming every day. And if I look back and I see where we are now, we've definitely in the majority now.
The geeks and nerds on computers is a thing of the past, obviously, right? Behind chessboards and, Mark Zuck and Bill Gates and Elon Musk, books and libraries, those are always the places you didn't hang out. So I think, Rich, you've certainly had your work cut out for you. And I think the world feels that movement, like the horse is bolted. It's like it's time for change. And the best is if we can help shape a wave from the ground up. Let's cause the tsunami walking into retail and saying, no, guys, like I'm going to reject that plastic thing. Your competitor next door's joined the wave. It's time for you to get on board. We just had all the results coming out, the global impact, and you'll know the fancy names, like reports about percentages on climate change. And it's, never mind getting real. It's like, I think I heard a week ago, maybe it's just scare tactics, but it's like, we're at the point of no return. If you don't, there's obviously the skeptics saying the dinosaurs happened and it was a major catastrophe, one-off incident, and that's just the world. But I tend to believe everything you're saying scientifically makes sense. That's I'm not passing judgment, but I'm just saying. So join the movement.
That's so important. Find the truth. There's so much, there's so much misinformation out there. Find the truth. Educate yourself. It's interesting. You'll find anything online to back up your perspective of the world. Make sure that your perspective resonates, with something more than just physical. There needs to be something, from a spiritual side that guides your view on the world as well. So look to that, and look to improve the world for humanity as a whole, and not just yourself. And I think with that, you will only succeed.
Well, Rich, amazing inspiration. Thank you so much. Thanks for supporting me and coming on the show.
Thanks for listening to Outside Your Comfort Zone with Glenn Miller, your comfort zone coach. If you like what you hear, help spread the word. Subscribe to the podcast and invite a friend. For show notes, links, and extra goodies, visit comfortzonecoach.com.au.